So exactly how does a notary make money? Because generally the states have caps on the amount of money that you can charge to notarize a document. Well, generally, the way that notaries can make money as a mobile notary is through their travel fees. And of course, additional fees that they can charge, like urgency and maybe printing documents, just different things like that. But for the most part, it's through the travel fees. Now, there are some states that are very, very limited. And then I'm going to go through the list. And at the end, I'm going to tell you which ones are the best states to be in to become a mobile notary. So don't go anywhere and watch until the end. So let's start with the states and the districts that actually set the notary travel fees. And those are going to be Connecticut, District of Columbia, Idaho, Nevada, New Hampshire, and Virginia. And I'm sorry, y'all, if I mispronounce your state. Okay, no evil comments. All right. So let's start with Connecticut and New Hampshire. They're the most straightforward of all of these. So Connecticut does allow the notaries to charge 35 cents per mile for travel, and New Hampshire 20 cents per mile. But the rate only applies when a notary travels to swear the witnesses for a deposition. So through the, even though the District of Columbia and Virginia do not set an actual fee, their laws only allow notaries to charge the actual and reasonable expense of travel. And for example, if a notary in one of these jurisdictions spent $5 total on fuel or other travel expenses while traveling to do this notarization, the notary can't charge any more than that. That's it. On to Nevada. So Nevada's laws are the most unique and of course the most complicated of all of them. The notary and the signer have to agree on the hourly rate in advance. Hourly rate. So the notary has to explain that the travel fee is separate from the notarization fee, and of course it's not required by law. The actual travel fee is not a requirement. So I guess the client could say, hey, it's not a requirement, I don't want to pay it, right? These requirements do mirror the requirements of other states, and they're clear and pretty easy to understand. However, the maximum hourly rate is where things get a little more complicated. So Nevada notaries may not charge more than the following hourly rates, and then of course the rate depends on the time of day they travel. So the travel fee can't exceed $15 for travel between 6 and 7 p.m. So 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. $10 per hour for a notarization that's done electronically, and $30 per hour for travel between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. $25 per hour for an electronic notarization. So notaries can charge a minimum of 2 hours for such travel and must charge on a pro rata basis and after the first 2 hours. Now, Nevada law also prescribes the following rules relating to these travel fees. Travel fees must be recorded in the journal along with the date and time the notary began and ended the travel. So that's a lot of, keeping notes. Seriously detailing all of your traveling. The notary may demand that the travel fee be paid in advance, and the notary is entitled to any additional travel fee if the person requesting the notarial act cancels on them. So once the notary has began to travel and that request is canceled, the notary or the notary is just unable to perform the notarial act as a result of the actions of the client or the person who requested it, at that point they are still due their fee. So at that point you can request it in advance. So as you can tell, in these first few states, it's not very, very profitable to be a mobile notary. The next states, they only allow you to charge based on federal or state mileage rates. So kind of like what the IRS charges or what you can use for your mileage rate on your income taxes for the federal government. So here are those states: Arizona, Indiana, Maryland, Montana, Nebraska, Rhode Island, Utah, Wyoming, and North Carolina. I almost feel like I'm calling out the names of for the Miss Universe contest. So in Arizona and Nebraska, travel fees are based on state mileage rates. And if you want to know what those are, you can always check the website for the latest authorized mileage rates in Arizona. There is this fee schedule online. And then in Indiana, Maryland, Montana, North Carolina, Rhode Island, Utah, and Wyoming allow the notaries to charge the federal mileage rates. That also, these fees have to be in advance notified to the client, and it does have to be agreed upon, and it does also have to be in writing. Okay, so the next states are the states that have just general guidelines, and that includes Arkansas, California, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, New Mexico, North Dakota, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and Washington. So in most of these states, the amount of travel fee is not specified, but the notaries still have to follow some basic guidelines that are issued by the state. You'll want to check your Secretary of State and make sure what those fees are. But these guidelines usually are published in the notary handbooks, or even you can find them online. For example, most of the states, California and Minnesota being the exception to this, require the travel fee to be agreed upon with the signer prior to actually traveling. Arkansas notaries are required to disclose any fee that they charge, including the travel fee, with the signer prior to travel commencing. The Minnesota Department of Commerce has posted an advisory that notaries who charge travel fees may be required to obtain a real estate closing license. I didn't even know this existed. So there is a real estate closing license that you may have to obtain in that particular state. In California, the Secretary of State has said that other fees, such as travel fees or loan signing fees, should not be included as fees charged for the notarial service. So it has to be completely separate. You may note that other fees charged in additional information portion of your journal. So when you go to include your information in the journal, that has to be separate, not part of the notarial fee. Pennsylvania notaries may charge customary and reasonable, so clerical or administrative fees for notarization, including travel, according to the Pennsylvania Department of State website. Notaries should inform their customers of the fee in advance and note that the fees separate in their journal as well. And most of these other states that I mentioned, of course, they all basically will require you to inform the signer of that travel fee. And it's not mandated by law, but of course, that's part of their guidelines. We have just come to the last states here, and these are the best ones because these notaries in these states can actually set their own travel fees. And those include, this was a little bit longer, Alabama, Alaska, Colorado, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. So many of these states recommend that the notaries set reasonable fees. But if your state does not provide travel fees or guidance, the National Notary Association does suggest that the following 5 best practices. Keep the travel fees separate from your notarial fees. Inform the customer of the travel fee in advance, which, by the way, this is just a good business practice anyways. You want to make sure that that is discussed and agreed upon before ever going out to do a job. And then explain your travel fee payment policy should the notarization not be completed. So this is something that I teach my notaries in my network to do, is to make sure that not only is it agreed upon, but this is something that you can actually request in advance before ever arriving to the location, making sure that you're, not going to not be able to notarize and then they not pay you. Request travel fee payment in advance. Of course, this is optional, but this is something that I definitely suggest. And record the travel fee separately from the notarization fee in your journal. It's important to understand where you are and what the regulations and the policies and the laws are for your state so that you don't make any mistakes. But if you've ever considered relocating, you may want to relocate to one of these states where you can set your own travel fees and you can make as much money as you want and that your client agrees to when it comes to setting those fees. Y'all, have a great day.